She arrived expecting care. What she got was judgment. On a warm spring morning in Atlanta, Monica Ellis, 6 months pregnant, stood outside the pristine glass entrance of the upscale Rose Hill Women's Medical Center. Dressed in a modest sky blue maternity dress and gently rubbing her belly, she took a calming breath. This was supposed to be a joyful moment, her first 4D ultrasound. But she wasn't walking in with her husband today. Marcus had been called away for an urgent meeting at the U.S. District Office and promised he'd be there as soon as he could. Monica believed him, he always kept his word, but the ache of going in alone clung to her like a shadow. Inside the clinic gleamed with sterile perfection marble floors, curated flower arrangements, and a cold hush that spoke more of class than comfort. Monica stepped in with quiet confidence, announcing herself at the front desk. "Good morning, Monica Ellis. I have a 10:30 with Dr. Halsey." The blonde receptionist didn't smile. She barely looked up. Instead, she scanned Monica from head to toe, her expression unreadable, but her pause said everything. Not welcome. Not equal. Just tolerated. As Monica filled out forms in the waiting area, she felt the stare, tightened handbags, shifted glances, subtle avoidance. The silence wasn't just quiet. It was loaded. And she hadn't even reached the exam room yet, but behind one of those immaculate doors, something darker was waiting. And Monica had no idea the storm she was about to walk into. The moment Monica's name was called, the tension she had tried so hard to ignore wrapped itself tighter around her. A nurse in pale blue scrubs appeared in the hallway, not with a smile or greeting, but with a curt nod and a clipboard clutched to her chest like a barrier. "Monica Ellis," she said, eyes flicking from paper to patient, with the same dispassion one might show to a piece of luggage. Monica rose slowly, pressing a hand against the small of her back for support and gathering her bag. "Good morning," she offered with a hopeful smile. But the nurse had already turned and was walking briskly down the corridor without a word. Monica followed the hush of the hallway, swallowing her footsteps. The walls were lined with soft artwork and photos of glowing white mothers cradling newborns. None of them looked like her. Not a single image. And with every step she felt more like a stranger trespassing in someone else's sanctuary. They stopped at room 4C. The nurse opened the door and gestured inside with the efficiency of someone flipping a switch. "The doctor will be with you shortly," she said flatly, shutting the door behind Monica before she could respond. The room smelled of antiseptic and artificial lavender. Monica sat on the edge of the examination bed, smoothing her dress and whispering to her belly. "We're okay, baby. Daddy's coming?" She checked her phone. 10:43 a.m. Marcus was a few minutes late. It was fine. She just needed to get through this scan. But then the door opened. Dr. Lillian Halsey entered the room with a deliberate kind of stillness. Her posture was perfect. Her white coat, freshly pressed, her platinum blonde hair pulled into a no-nonsense twist. But it was the eyes, cool gray and void of welcome, that made Monica's heart sink. The doctor didn't introduce herself, didn't offer a smile, not even a hello. She simply stared, as if silently sizing Monica up. The silence grew so uncomfortable that Monica spoke first, trying to fill it with something warm. "Yes, I'm Monica Ellis. I believe we're doing a 4D scan today." Still, Dr. Halsey didn't smile. Her eyes traveled down Monica's figure, not like a physician, but like a critic judging a stranger's wardrobe. "You came alone," she said flatly. Monica blinked, caught off guard. "My husband had an emergency meeting. He's on his way," she explained, offering it gently, trying not to let the tension rise. A smirk flickered across Dr. Halsey's lips. "Of course," she murmured, voice thick with implication. Then, without looking up, she continued adjusting papers. "Let me guess, you don't know who the father is. Or maybe he changed his mind this morning about sticking around." The words hit Monica like a slap. Her breath caught in her chest. "Excuse me," she said, rising slowly from the table, her hands trembling now, but clenched tight. Dr. Halsey turned toward her, expression hardening. "This isn't a public clinic, Miss Ellis. This is a medical facility for mothers who take responsibility for their lives, not for people who look like they just wandered in off a bus." Something inside Monica snapped, not loud, not chaotic, but a quiet and steady fire. "I made this appointment. I confirmed it. I arrived with respect," she said firmly. "I didn't come here to be judged." But what Monica didn't know, what none of them knew, was that someone was about to arrive who would make them regret every word. Dr. Halsey's stare didn't soften, not even in the face of Monica's quiet strength. Instead, her lips curled into a cruel smirk, as if confrontation somehow proved her assumptions right. "Respect," she scoffed. "You people are always respectful when you want something. Then you bring drama, disruption, and entitlement the moment you're held accountable. Not today. Not in my clinic." Monica's stomach tightened not from the baby, but from the rage simmering beneath her ribs. She had endured microaggressions, patronizing tones, and long stares for most of her adult life. But never had she been so blatantly humiliated, especially not while trying to protect the tiny life growing inside her. "I'm leaving," Monica said firmly, her hand moving instinctively to cradle her belly. "I don't need this. I won't sit here and be insulted." She reached for her tote, but before she could take a step, Dr. Halsey blocked her path to the door. "Oh, I don't think you'll be going anywhere just yet," the doctor said, feigning a puzzled glance toward the counter. "Interesting, I had a Cartier watch sitting right there this morning. Platinum band. Now it's gone." Monica froze. Her eyes widened as she realized what was happening. This wasn't just about getting rid of her. This was a setup. "What are you implying?" she asked, voice trembling but defiant. "I never touched anything." Dr. Halsey's reply was immediate and venomous. "I'm saying I've had enough charity cases walk in here and walk out with more than they came in with. You'll let security sort it out." The doctor stepped into the hallway, and within minutes the door reopened, not with care, but with cold authority. Two uniformed security officers entered, both white, both stone-faced. One older clipboard in hand, the other younger, bulkier, chewing gum with lazy disdain. Miss Ellis, the older one, said, tone rehearsed and emotionless, "We've had a report of missing property. You've been identified as a person of interest. You'll need to come with us." Monica's heart pounded against her ribs. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't take anything. I've done nothing wrong." "Well, sort that out downstairs," the younger officer muttered, already flanking her. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." Monica looked around the sterile exam room at the ultrasound machine she had hoped would reveal her child's face for the first time, now replaced by cold stares and humiliation. Her hand gripped her belly, as if shielding her baby from the venom in the room. With no choice, she followed them down a hallway meant for staff, through unmarked doors, and into a small, dim security office. The chair they ordered her to sit in was plastic and cold, bolted to the floor like a prison fixture. She begged to call her husband. They refused. When she tried to explain, they confiscated her phone. "You're not under arrest," the older one said, "but you are being detained." Her voice trembled, but she didn't cry. "This is wrong," she said softly. "I came here to take care of my child." The younger one chuckled, chewing louder. "You want sympathy? You're in the wrong place." Monica clenched her jaw and closed her eyes. She had never felt so alone, so powerless. But what they didn't know was that Marcus Ellis was already walking through the clinic doors, and he wasn't just her husband. He was the storm. Back in the main lobby of Rose Hill Women's Medical Center, The quiet hum of soft music and rustling magazines was shattered by the sound of firm, purposeful footsteps. Marcus Ellis stepped through the glass doors with the confidence of a man who had never once needed to raise his voice to be heard. Dressed in a sharp, charcoal-gray suit, his Department of Justice lapel pin gleaming on his chest, Marcus radiated composure, but beneath it a storm brewed. His dark eyes scanned the room once, taking in every detail, the polished floors, the sterile decor, and the pale receptionist who immediately stiffened when she looked up and met his gaze. "Good morning, Marcus," said his voice deep calm and unmistakably authoritative. "I'm looking for my wife, Monica Ellis. She had a 10:30 appointment with Dr. Halsey." The receptionist blinked her fingers, hovering above the keyboard for a beat too long. One moment, sir," she stammered quickly, looking at her screen. "It says she's not currently in the exam room." Marcus didn't flinch. "Then where is she?" His tone remained civil, but something behind the question made the air shift. The receptionist faltered. "Security was called. There was an incident. I think she's downstairs in the security office." Marcus' jaw tightened. "What incident?" She looked down. "Two, don't know the details. Dr. Halsey said I need to see her." "Now." The woman swallowed hard. "I'll get the floor manager." "No need." Marcus reached into his jacket, pulled out a slim leather badge case, and flipped it open with a practiced motion. Inside gleamed his Federal Credentials Deputy Director, Office of Civil Rights Enforcement. Her breath hitched audibly. Marcus held the badge there for 3 deliberate seconds before closing it. "Where is the security office?" he asked again. Her voice was smaller now. "Down the corridor past the staff elevator. First door on the left." Marcus didn't thank her. He turned and strode down the hallway, his steps silent but thunderous in their intent. Every muscle in his body was coiled, but his face remained unreadable. This wasn't the first time he'd had to fight battles in quiet buildings, but never on behalf of the woman he loved. He reached the unmarked door, slightly ajar, and heard muffled voices inside. Without hesitation, he pushed it open. There she was, Monica, sitting rigid in a bolted plastic chair, hands protectively over her belly, eyes wide with a mixture of fear, disbelief, and a flicker of relief. 2 security officers turned, surprised by the intrusion. "Can we help you?" one of them asked. Marcus stepped inside his badge, already in hand. "Yes," he said, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "You can help me by explaining why my wife is being detained without due cause, without representation, and without access to her personal property." The room fell into stunned silence. Monica's eyes filled not with fear this time, but with breathtaking relief. Her protector had arrived, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would be the same after this moment. The 2 officers stood frozen, caught off guard by the sheer weight of Marcus's presence. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. Authority radiated from him, not just from the badge, but from the steady, unblinking fire in his eyes. "I want the name of the individual who ordered this detainment," he said coolly, "the report that authorized it, and immediate access to all surveillance footage involving my wife." The older guard clipboard still in hand cleared his throat, fumbling for composure. "Sir Dr. Halsey reported a missing item, her watch, and identified your wife as the last person in the exam room." Marcus didn't even blink. "That's not a report. That's an accusation with no evidence, and you acted on it without verification, detained a pregnant woman without counsel, confiscated her phone, and isolated her in a room with no cameras. That's not protocol. That's a civil rights violation." The younger officer, who'd been leaning against the wall moments ago, now straightened his bravado, draining fast. "We were just following orders," he muttered. Marcus turned his gaze on him. "Then you're complicit." He pulled out his badge once again and placed it on the metal desk, letting the seal of the United States Department of Justice settle into the space like a judge's gavel. As Deputy Director of Civil Rights Enforcement, I am invoking immediate oversight. If you delay providing footage or records, this becomes obstruction, and I will make sure this facility is held fully accountable. Silence. The buzzing overhead light seemed to grow louder as the older guard hesitated, then turned to the console and began tapping keys. Monica sat silently still, holding her stomach, her eyes never leaving Marcus. The tremble in her hands had stopped. Her breathing slowed. For the first time in what felt like hours, she felt seen, protected. The screen flickered and displayed hallway surveillance footage. Marcus stepped closer. Rewind to 10:40 a.m. Outside exam room 4C. They watched Monica entering alone. Calm. Composed. She touched only the doorknob and the seat. Never once did her hands move toward the counter or the tray. Time stamped at 10:52 a.m. Dr. Halsey exited the room, glanced at the tray, and then left in apparent agitation. "Freeze that," Marcus ordered. "Zoom in on the tray." The image sharpened a silver Cartier watch right where the doctor had supposedly left it. "Still there," Marcus said. "Roll it forward." The screen jumped ahead. At 10:54, a cleaning staff member entered, tidied briefly, and left. The watch remained. Then at 10:59, the feed cut out. "Why is there no footage after that?" Marcus asked. The older guard wiped his brow. "That's when the camera feed switches during shift change. There's a 5-minute blind spot." Marcus exhaled sharply. "How convenient," he said with icy disdain. He reached over, opened the drawer, and retrieved Monica's phone himself. Gently, he placed it back in her hands. "You're done holding her. This is over." Then, with his voice low and steady, he added, "And now, I'm taking this to the top." And from that moment forward, the quiet weight of justice began falling, first in that room and soon over the entire building. Marcus didn't wait for approval. He helped Monica rise to her feet with gentle hands, then turned toward the stunned officers, his tone low but resonant. "You've both violated civil rights policy, and I will be filing formal complaints. You may want to speak to legal counsel before your next shift." Without another word, he guided his wife out of the dim security room and back into the fluorescent-lit corridor. Monica walked slowly, still shaken, but there was a new weight in her posture. Not fear, but dignity being rebuilt with every step. She held her phone tight in one hand, the other resting protectively over her belly. For hours, she had sat in silence, treated like a suspect, in a facility designed to support mothers, yet never once offered support herself. Now, with Marcus by her side, she walked taller. As they stepped out of the elevator and back onto the main floor, the shift was immediate. Staff who had previously avoided eye contact now stood frozen in place. The receptionist who had looked through Monica hours earlier gasped audibly as the couple passed. But Marcus didn't flinch. His steps were calm, controlled, yet they carried the same weight as a courtroom gavel. They weren't just returning to finish an appointment. They were returning to claim respect. An administrator in a blazer, clearly hastily summoned, met them outside a glass-walled conference room, his expression uneasy. "Mr. and Mrs. Ellis," he stammered. We've convened the ethics board. Dr. Halsey is inside." Marcus gave a small nod. "Good. Let's get started." Inside, 3 board members sat stiffly. 2 men. 1 woman, all white, all visibly uncomfortable. Dr. Halsey sat at the far end, arms crossed tightly, her expression still clinging to authority, but cracking under scrutiny. Marcus remained standing, his badge now clipped to his pocket, visible and undeniable. Monica took her seat across from the woman who had humiliated her, her back straight, her eyes steady. For once, she had the floor, and this time no one could take her voice from her. The board chair spoke first, his voice brittle. "We've reviewed preliminary footage, Mr. Ellis. We understand you intend to file a formal complaint." Marcus placed a folder on the table signed, time-stamped. "We're filing on multiple grounds," he said. "Falsely accusing my wife of theft, unlawful detainment, denial of communication, and perhaps most disturbing of all, racially motivated misconduct by your attending physician." Dr. Halsey scoffed, her voice tight with defensiveness. "I followed procedure. I had every reason to suspect." "You had every reason to assume," Marcus cut in, voice cold, "based not on her behavior, but on the color of her skin and the fact that she didn't walk in with a man." Then Monica spoke, her voice firm and unwavering. "You looked at me and didn't see a mother. You didn't see a wife. You didn't see a teacher. You saw a stereotype. You humiliated me in a place where I was supposed to feel safe. She didn't yell. She didn't have to." Every word landed with quiet force. The board was silent, and Dr. Halsey, who had once owned the room, now looked smaller than ever. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the low hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. The board members sat stiffly, eyes shifting between Monica Marcus and the visibly unraveling Dr. Halsey. Monica remained composed, her voice even and deliberate. "You told me I probably didn't know who the father was. You said I looked like I came from a bus station. You made those assumptions before you even treated me like a person, before you even asked my name." Her hands rested gently on her belly, grounding her, but her eyes never wavered. "I came here for a moment that should have been joyful. Instead, I was interrogated, accused, and locked in a room like a criminal for being a black woman walking into the wrong kind of clinic." Across the table, Dr. Halsey's jaw clenched. "That's not how it happened," she snapped. But her tone lacked the venom it once carried. It sounded more like a last defense from someone who knew they were losing ground. Marcus stepped forward, then the calm precision of a seasoned federal official returning to his voice. "Let me be very clear. This is no longer just a matter of poor bedside manner. It's a federal concern, sir. What you did was discriminatory, unethical, and reckless. We're filing formal litigation under civil rights law. But beyond legal action, we're demanding systemic change." He placed a second document on the table, this one bearing the letterhead of the Department of Justice. "We want a full review of patient rights policies, the implementation of mandatory anti-bias training for all staff, and the immediate suspension of Dr. Halsey pending investigation." The chair of the ethics board cleared his throat, his voice suddenly dry. "We will begin proceedings immediately. This is a serious matter." One of the other board members, a woman in a navy blazer, nodded solemnly, clearly shaken. "Thank you for bringing this forward. We're sorry this happened." But Dr. Halsey stood abruptly, knocking her chair askew. Her composure finally cracked. "I have built this practice for over a decade," she hissed, her voice teetering between rage and panic. "I don't have to sit here and be lectured by people who don't understand what it takes to run a place like this." Her words fell flat. No one rose to defend her. No one spoke. Without another word, she stormed out of the room, her heels clicking down the hallway like punctuation marks on a career unraveling in real time. Later that week, Rose Hill Women's Medical Center released a public statement acknowledging the incident. Dr. Halsey was placed on indefinite administrative leave. The clinic promised a full review of its staff conduct policies and issued a formal apology to Monica Ellis. But for Monica, it wasn't just about policy or statement. It was about being seen. About no longer letting assumptions define her dignity. And now that she'd spoken, she wasn't done. The world was going to hear her. 2 weeks later, Monica stood at a podium outside Rose Hill Women's Medical Center not as a victim, but as a voice. Flanked by her husband, Marcus, and local civil rights leaders, She faced a sea of cameras and microphones with the same quiet strength that had carried her through humiliation detainment and righteous defiance. Her words were calm, but unshakable. This isn't just about me. It's about every Black woman who's walked into a room and been treated like a threat instead of a patient. It's about systems that allow bias to masquerade as policy. And it's about standing up not just when it's safe, but especially when it's not. Applause followed, not loud, but steady and full of weight. And behind her, Marcus rested a hand gently on her shoulder, pride etched into every line of his face. For the first time in weeks, Monica smiled, because something had finally shifted. Not everything was fixed, but the silence had been broken. And that's the lesson we take with us today. Dignity is not something you ask for, it's something you stand up and demand, even when your voice shakes. Have you ever been underestimated or treated unfairly because of how you looked, where you came from, or the space you dared to enter? Share your story in the comments. We read every one. If this story moved you, inspired you, or opened your eyes, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Let's keep telling the stories that challenge assumptions and honor courage.